Week 8 is in the books, and whether you won or lost, there are takeaways to be had from Week 8 that can help us in Week 9 and beyond. Let's jump into them. And the first takeaway is the difference Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua make to this Rams offense. We knew Cooper Kupp was probably going to play in this game. We had no idea Puka Nacua was going to play. Very close to game time. I think a few hours before game time, they said, yep, he's going to play. We thought he would be limited, and technically both of these guys were limited by their standards, but they weren't limited on the stat sheets. Both guys had a very good game for fantasy, and they really opened up this offense, and we saw an offense that looked more like the offense we saw last year versus the offense we had seen most of this year. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that Puka Nacua reasserted himself that he is the clear number one wide receiver in this offense. I know their point totals were very similar, but despite the fact that Puka only ran 61% of the routes, he led the team in targets, he led the team in first read percentage. You got to think as he gets healthier and runs more routes, he's going to be the guy you want in this passing attack. It looks like Puka Nacua is finally going to pay off that first round ADP. Meanwhile, Cooper Kupp is still solid here. My worries for Cooper Kupp a little bit is there's a lot of dink and dunk with Cooper Kupp. Not a lot of downfield shots with him. They did take a couple, but Cooper Kupp will still be very solid. Probably more like an upside wide receiver 2 play. But man, this Rams offense, got to be feeling good about it rest of the season. A big bump for Matthew Stafford as well. And Puka Nacua is back and must be in fantasy lineups rest of the way. Takeaway number 2 is the difference a healthy Ramondre Stevenson can make in fantasy football. Remember back in like week 5, he suffered that foot injury, missed week 6, was limited on the injury report in week 7, didn't have a good game. This week, he was finally off the injury report, fully healthy to go, and man, did it show. He played 73% of the snaps and had a very nice fantasy day. Now, he wasn't super efficient here. This was a Jets run defense, but he got so much volume. He got the goal line work, got that 2-point conversion. This is the Ramondre Stevenson we saw earlier in the year when he was very good. Maybe he just needed to get healthy again. I think sometimes maybe we forget like these guys are on the injury report and then they play and we think, there's no issue here. Maybe there is an issue. Maybe it was affecting him. But man, he looks good to go going forward. I will say tough matchup this week against that Tennessee Titans run defense. But after that, he has a very soft schedule all the way until week 17 when they face the Chargers. So Ramondre Stevenson looks like a great buy low candidate right now. Go out, try to get Ramondre Stevenson. He's healthy and he looks good. And right now, if you're enjoying the video, getting value out of it, hit that like button, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. Takeaway number 3 is we got some clarity on this Bucs backfield. This backfield we thought was going to be a 3-headed monster. Really isn't. Sean Tucker only played 7 snaps in this game. He's completely irrelevant. But we saw how Bucky Irving and Rachaad White are going to be utilized kind of the way we thought. Bucky Irving, clearly the early down back here. Rachaad White, more of the passing down back. Now, because this is a game the Bucs were trailing and they had to come back in this game, Rachaad White did play 10 more snaps than Bucky Irving and he ran 11 more routes than Bucky Irving, but Bucky Irving somehow out-targeted Rachaad White in this game. Both these guys have value going forward. Both of these guys are startable going forward. They eat into each other's ceiling a little bit, and obviously they're going to be game script dependent. In games where the Bucs look like they're probably going to be losing, like let's say they play a really good offense because the Bucs defense is terrible, maybe you want to prefer Rachaad White that week. In weeks where it looks like they're going to win because they're playing a bad offense, a bad team, Bucky Irving might be the preferred play. But if you have either of these guys, you can probably roll them out there as a weekly flex. This Bucs offense runs a lot of plays. They're putting points on the board. So both of these guys are startable rest of the season. Takeaway number 4 is Chris Olave to the moon. We finally got to look at a healthy Chris Olave without Rashid Shaheed and what this passing attack is going to look like. And oh boy, wheels all the way up for Chris Olave. 13 targets in this game. No other receiver or pass catcher had more than 4 targets. Alvin Kamara, the running back, ranked second with 10, and I think this is also good for Alvin Kamara, but we're talking about Chris Olave here, the clear wide receiver 1 for the Saints. And oh, by the way, Derek Carr is supposed to be back this week, even without Derek Carr last week. The first game we saw him with a combination of Spencer Rattler and Jake Haener, 8 catches, 107 yards. Chris Olave, a lot of people don't realize this because Chris Olave hasn't put up those gaudy fantasy numbers, but Chris Olave is one of the best separators in the entire NFL. He's routinely open all over the field. He just needs a quarterback that can get it to him. And Derek Carr, no, he's not the best, but he's good enough, and there are no other competition for targets here for Chris Olave. This guy could get double-digit targets week in and week out in this Saints offense. And this is a Saints offense that's going to have to throw the ball a lot because that defense has turned into Swiss cheese. If there is any kind of buy low opportunity still on Chris Olave, please go get him right now. This guy could truly be a league winner rest of the season. Now, I don't know if CJ Stroud's going to be a league winner rest of the season, but I know he can get you at least a yard on Thursday Night Football. That's his free square on Underdog Fantasy. If you sign up for the first time, you get that CJ Stroud new customer special. Pair it with any other pick or picks you like. It's an easy way to get a win right out of the gate. And if you join using promo code ENDGAME, not only will you get that CJ Stroud special, you'll also get up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use to make picks right away. Takeaway number 5, are we getting a tight end revival? Of the top 15 overall scorers in fantasy in week 8, 4 of them were tight ends. 5 tight ends went over 20 fantasy points. I don't know if you heard, you probably didn't because they didn't talk about it very much, but yesterday was this weird fake holiday called National Tight End Day. Again, they didn't talk about it much, so you probably weren't aware of this. I think this might have had something to do with all the tight ends going off. I'm really not sure. But in all seriousness, yes, the tight ends went off on National Tight End Day. I'm not ready to say tight end position is back in fantasy football, but I am ready to say Kyle Pitts has officially arrived for fantasy football. This is 3 straight games with double-digit points. He's averaging over 16 points per game the last 3 games. He's the tight end 6 over the last 3 games. I'm not going to say Kyle Pitts is like a no-doubt must-start him over everybody guy, but I think Kyle Pitts has entered the conversation as a set-and-forget tight end. If you got Kyle Pitts, just lock him into your lineup the rest of the season. Takeaway number 6, the Bills wide receivers. We still haven't seen that Amari Cooper bump since he got traded here. Still only played 38 snaps out of a possible 60 snaps. Ran the 3rd fewest routes among the big 3 wide receivers. Barely more routes than Dalton Kincaid. Rookie Keon Coleman has looked great the last 2 weeks. Maybe he's starting to, get acclimated to the speed of the NFL game. I think we could see Keon Coleman be a monster down the stretch. I think he's another great buy low candidate if you're able to buy low on him. Khalil Shakir has been solid. He actually led this team in routes in week 8. 1 more route than Keon Coleman. And sadly, Amari Cooper just seems to be in that kind of semi-sacrificial X wide receiver role, meaning he's playing that X wide receiver position, just running a lot of vertical routes. Maybe as the season goes on, he learns the playbook. That will change, but I don't think going to Buffalo is going to be the big bump for Amari Cooper we had hoped. I still think he's going to be very boom bust here. I really think Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir are probably the 2 wide receivers you want for fantasy. Coleman, way more upside than Shakir. If you can buy low on him, do it. Takeaway number 7, Jakobi Meyers without Davante Adams. Another great buy low candidate here is Jakobi Meyers. In the 3 games he has played healthy without Davante Adams this year, he ranks 12th among all players in targets and 19th in first read percentage. He's looking like a great late round pick for your fantasy leagues. Now I know we got lucky with the Davante Adams trade, but hey, it's happened, it's here, we got to accept it. And he will be capped, of course, his upside will be capped because Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, these are the guys that are going to be throwing him passes, so he's not going to have the highest ceiling among all these players, but again, I think he's a great wide receiver 3 rest of the season with weekly upside. Another guy who is a tremendous buy low right now because you can get him for almost nothing, to be honest, even after this nice game. No one's going to buy into this offense, the Raiders. He's a great buy low if you're looking for that wide receiver 3 with upside. Maybe you're stacked everywhere else. You just need that guy to fill that last hole. Jakobi Meyers can be that guy. Go see if you can get him on the cheap. And if you got him, keep rolling him out there every week. Now, speaking of Davante Adams, takeaway number 8 is I think this guy might be getting close to dusty here. Even going to the Jets with his BFF Aaron Rodgers has not helped him out. Not only that, the Jets have played him in the slot almost 50% of the time so far. His ADOT is 6.6. That is one of the lowest among all wide receivers. That is the kind of ADOT you see for guys like, I don't know, Juju Smith-Schuster, JSN, these slot only, no vertical game type of wide receivers. That is not what you're looking for in fantasy football. That is no upside here. Since he's gone to the Jets, 15 targets, only 7 catches for 84 yards, no deep shots at all for this guy. I hate to say it, but Father Time is undefeated, and it looks like Davante Adams is losing this battle to Father Time. He'll be fine, but to me, he's one of those wide receivers. I just slot him in that bucket of guys you need some points, he'll get you some points, but very little upside here. If there is any kind of sell high window on Davante Adams still, I would absolutely be selling Davante Adams. I don't think we're going to see anything close to the guy we expected to see this season, and I just don't think the upside is going to be there for Davante Adams at all in 2024, and sadly, maybe ever again. Takeaway number 9 is the Packers wide receiver. Look, it's been a frustrating year for wide receivers in fantasy. So many injuries and busts. It feels like wide receivers are running backs this year, not the other way around. But it is what it is. I've never experienced this before in fantasy, but hey, You play long enough, you'll see everything. But I think one of the most frustrating wide receiver rooms has to be the Green Bay Packers here. Who's the wide receiver 1? Who's the wide receiver 2? Who's going to play more snaps? Who's going to run more routes? We never know week to week. I guess if there is a wide receiver 1, it's Romeo Doubs. He does tend to run the most routes of any of these wide receivers. Jayden Reed, the guy who was drafted first in fantasy, only out there in 3 wide receiver sets, has been mostly terrible this year. Christian Watson, who 2 weeks ago split snaps with Dontavian Wicks, suddenly the clear number 3 wide receiver here, badly out-snapping Dontavian Wicks. What's going to happen in week 9? I have no idea anymore. I just want to get out from under this wide receiver group if possible. And now Jordan Love dealing with a groin injury. If there's a sell high on Jayden Reed, a sell high on Christian Watson, I'm doing it if I can. Just get me out from under this frustration. Sure, there's going to be weeks where Jayden Reed pops off, Christian Watson pops off, Romeo Doubs pops off, but good luck predicting when that is, and the rest of the time, you're going to wish you hadn't started them. And takeaway number 10 is we have a workhorse in Chicago, and that is DeAndre Swift. After a horrendous start to the season for DeAndre Swift, he has absolutely been great the last 4 games. Scored at least 18.9 PPR points in 4 straight games, had scored at least 20 PPR points in 3 straight games. In week 8, he outcarried Rashawn Johnson 18-4 and ran 11 more routes. Now, I know it's frustrating. Rashawn Johnson is the goal line back, but it kind of makes sense. That's never been DeAndre Swift's strength, and Rashawn Johnson is a bigger back, but it doesn't really matter. This guy is getting the valuable touches for fantasy. He's catching passes. He looks great. The run blocking looks much better than it did earlier in the season. They're still not pass protecting very well, but the run blocking has gotten better. I think DeAndre Swift, another great buy low if you need a buy low running back, because I feel like people still don't believe. They're like, it's the Bears. The Bears are terrible. They don't want to believe in DeAndre Swift. Go out, get yourself a workhorse running back on the cheap if you can. And also make sure you stay tuned here all week long for the videos you need to dominate in week 9. Start sit, booms, waiver wire. We got you covered. Everything you need is in our week 9 playlist right here.